Hey, buddy, how are you?
Doing all right.
Good, good. When are you leaving again?
For
You're gone for like a month or 6 weeks or something?
that's gonna be in July. I leave tomorrow and probably won't make it to church on Wednesday. But I'll be coming back Wednesday. But
Where are
I'll
you
be in
going?
21 Palms.
Oh,
And you know how it is driving. Sometimes the traffic's out there is absolutely terrible.
I don't drive out there very often,
It's
so
not worth it.
no.
It's like typical of California traffic you would
Yeah.
expect, where it's just like there should be no reason why it's backed up and
Yeah.
congested, but it is.
There's so many people that commute from the desert down to San Diego proper or whatever. So do you take the 78?
Whatever the GPS tells me is the fastest at the time.
I can't do windy roads. One of the things I hate about going out to like Borrego Springs is it's so windy. I can't stand windiness.
It's just like obnoxious to you, or do you get like motion sick or something?
I get motion sickness. Yeah, I've as I've gotten older, I've got to the point where I can't handle roller coasters or anything like that. I would be a terrible pilot.
Is there like some sort of glasses or something that you could wear that would help? Because I know with like motion sickness, some of it is like your body's trying to adjust to the moving image
Yeah.
that it's seeing and can't do it. Because like if I'm in the backseat of a car, I'll get the same thing.
Yeah.
Depending on who's driving.
All right, man. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody.
You remember to turn it on, Billy?
Good. Thank you.
There you go.
Everybody can hear me okay? Good morning, everybody. This is the second class. We're going to be covering John chapter 8, 31 through 59. That's a lot of verses, so we've got a lot to cover, and I'm excited to get into it. Before Warren leads us to prayer, I did want to, it dawned on me this week that it's been about 5 or 6 years since I've taught the adult class, and so I'm a new face, I'm a new style for you, and I figured maybe I would start over and just kind of share with you what my teaching style is. One of the things that I learned while teaching the young adult class was I started that class doing lecture, and then I realized participation from these incredibly intelligent young adults was probably more appropriate style, and so I was able to figure out a way to get through the message that I wanted to share, but allow them to participate. And what I've learned from last week is I'm gonna be asking a little bit more specific questions rather than broader questions, and hopefully that'll help steer the answers so that others can learn. We can learn together as we go through this text. Before we get started, Warren's gonna lead us in opening prayer.
Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for blessing us with this morning, with this opportunity to get up and make the choice to come to worship you. Thank you for strengthening us and allowing us to do that. Please be with those who are not able to do so. Help them to get better, recover, and make that decision to come back to be with us in your church. Thank you for the opportunity to learn more about your word and help Billy to guide us in that lesson today. Thank you for the gift of heaven through your Son, his death, his burial, and his resurrection through your power. And it's through your Son that we offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Warren. All right, so last week we started kind of halfway through chapter 8, but we had gone back a little bit just to make sure we're all on the same page. And I wanted to paint this picture of Jesus is part of looks like a trial. So this scene is an angry crowd. In that crowd, we have Pharisees, we have religious leaders, we have listeners, curious listeners, and we have some that we're going to read about in verse 31 about some that actually believe. And Warren pointed out that maybe we have travelers from other location that came to join the Feast of Tabernacle, and Jesus is in the temple courts doing this, and he started very early. We learned it was at dawn they got started. So that's the scene. And as I shared last week, I gave you the illustration of a courtroom. And the crowd has almost got Jesus on the stand, and they're pressing him. But what we're going to find, which is really interesting, is that the way that Jesus responds, they're actually the ones that are going to be on the stand. And he's going to be pressing them. All right, so I'll take a volunteers of readers. We're going to break it up into, I think it's 6 sections this morning. I will read the first one, but again, we're in chapter 8 for those who just joined us, starting in verse 31. Let me back up to verse 30. This is where we ended last week. Even as he spoke, many put their faith in him. Verse 31, to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold on to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what does Jesus say is required to be a disciple? There's 3 parts of this. Verse 31, 32, and 32. What's the first one? And by the way, he's speaking to who again? He's kind of segued over to a specific type of individual in the crowd, which are those who are believing in him. Thank you. So, what's the first part of Jesus' requirement to be his disciples?
It's either believe or abide.
Believe or abide. Okay. I actually, you're what you're doing is you're putting it into 2 parts. I'm putting it into 3 parts, but that's not a wrong answer. Believe is number 1. That's verse 30. But what does it say in 31? What are they supposed to be doing? Josh? Remaining faithful. Abiding in his word. And so if we remain faithful, we abide in his word, what do we gain out of that? Freedom. That's the third part, and I was looking for truth. So as believers, so really Jesus is actually speaking to each one of us. Artini?
Don't say, say, you will be my disciple indeed, if you abide in my word. And you will find the truth. The truth will make you free. You don't just say, if abide, it is like we make you free. In the abide, we can make disciples, and disciples can know the truth, and truth make them free. I try to put it in order.
Artini was going with the 3 part that I was going with. Continue in his word, understand his teaching. If we abide, if we're in his word, we understand the truth, and that truth will what? Verse 32. It's been said a couple times. It will set us free. So it's a reminder as believers, Jesus is speaking to each one of us, and that we need to continue in his word. Then we can know the truth, and that truth will set us free. Let's jump into 33 through 30. I'm sorry, before we do that, anything on this section before we move on to 33? All right, do I have a volunteer to read 33 through 38? All right, we have a gentleman in the back here. John chapter 8, 33 through 38.
They answered him, we are Abraham descendants, and you who never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you shall be free? Jesus answered them, truly, truly I say to you, everyone who commits a sin is a slave of sin. The slave abides not remain in the house forever. The Son does remain forever. So if the Son make you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you ever come sentence against you seek to kill me. he tells my word has no place in you. I speak the things which I have seen with my Father. Therefore you also do the things which you heard with your father.
Thank you very much. Why did the crowd start in verse 33 with, "We are Abraham's descendants"? What was something that was said in 32 that triggered that?
Freedom.
It sets you free, right? What kind of freedom is the crowd focusing on versus what Jesus is focusing on?
The crowd's focusing on physical freedom, and Jesus is, of course, talking about spiritual freedom.
He starts off your spiritual freedom. So they are not on the same page, right? And who do they actually go to? Who's an important figure in the Old Testament? Abraham. What do we know about Abraham, by the way? What earned him the right at the Hall of Faith in Hebrews? He had a tremendous amount of faith, absolutely. And so the crowd is missing something here. They're missing what Grace just shared with us. They're missing his faith. They're thinking about identity, and he is our father, right? So they respond with, "We are Abraham's descendants." And then Jesus responds in verse 34. I'll reread it. "I tell you the truth. Anyone who sins is a slave to sin." What is, I think it was Mike who brought this up last week. Why does Jesus go into sin and a slave to sin? So we're on free. Oh, Martini?
Because the sinner every time is in captivity. Sinners every time is captive. And we have many mention about this in the Bible, and especially in the Psalm. It says they dig the pit and fall into the pit. What's the difference between the sinners and the Abraham? Abraham meet the angels, and he don't know about these angels, and he give them saying things like he more when he preparing for himself, and he make it more than equal. He give them more than equal, and for this reason, God knows about it and knows his faith and bless. And the sinners try to keep from himself, and this is unequal. This is iniquity, and they produce iniquity, and iniquity makes them captivity more and more. When they think about, oh, we can have some money, we can drink some blood, we can drink some pills or something and have a freedom, but it is they increase their captivity. Through the pill, they condemn their body. To the money, they need more and more. It is not enough for and like I try to explain for sin, iniquity produce captivity, and true is like another word, like for example, like equity. It is produce freedom, and this is different. Why he said sin is slave.
So our team he's talking about, he says will set you free. They miss it. Warren pointed out that they're talking about physical, he's talking about spiritual. Then Jesus goes back to the being a slave to sin, which is what our TV is talking about, and they are slaves to sin, so they are not on the same page here, right? And in verse 35, "Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." When I first looked at 35 and 36, I'm like, well, who's the Son? It's not, in my version, it's capitalized in 36, but it's not in 35. So let's break this down. What sons are we talking about? I thought I heard an answer. Warren, was that you?
No,
Oh, Artemi, yeah.
Jesus.
Jesus? is one of the references that he's making, but there's also another one, another type of son.
Well, I think the commonality is the son of a father. The
Okay.
Son of a father.
Versus son of a,
Human,
I'm sorry?
human.
Human, right? The other thing that we're, I was thinking about Old Testament. By the way, I spent my youth in my Bible studies in the Old Testament, and my teachers really kept us in there. So I have an appreciation for the Old Testament. Abraham had one son through his slave. He had one son through his wife. And I think about those two differences. The son had the inheritance. The other son, who was a slave, did not have the same inheritance, right? A slave may live in the same household, but only the son of the household father will inherit, permanently get the authority that they deserve. So sin results into slavery. We get rescue from the slavery through the son that Artemi brought up, which is Jesus. So he's trying to make this comparison of two different sons, and it's the slave son is not going to have the same inheritance as the son, the rightful son, and the rightful son is the one who's going to set that slave son free, and that's what he's trying to talk about. Exodus chapter 20, verse 2. What the crowd is missing here is Jesus is continually going back to the Old Testament. He's continually going back to what actually defined the Israelites, which was deliverance from Egypt, deliverance from their sin. But the one person that they have been talking about, including Abraham, who we referenced before, what was it that he said when Isaac said, where is the lamb that was going to be slain? You remember what? Sorry?
God will provide.
God will provide. And who and what is God going to provide? Jesus. What's interesting about this crowd is they knew the history. They knew Moses. They knew Abraham. But they are not knowing who Jesus is. Any comments or anything to add on 38?
I think it was really hard for them to even admit that they had sinned. Not even the, slave thing, but just admit that they had sinned. Because I'm thinking of the Pharisees that, I'm not like this tax collector. I tithe, I fast, do all the things I'm supposed to do. So they probably just couldn't even
They couldn't even fathom.
admit it.
But because they were following the law, right? And the son who was going to rescue them from their slavery, from their sin, is right in front of them, and they're not even seeing him.
Lost and they don't even know it.
They don't even know him. Did I see a hand over here? Keith?
Perhaps to your original question, there is a wonderful text in John 3 that where Jesus really begins to instruct and teach the people in the same fashion that he's doing here in John 8, and actually from John 3 through each chapter to John 8 in our text here. And it's a wonderful set of verses, if I can read them just
Absolutely. Thank you.
a minute. And unfortunately, the world and many miss these principles. It's the verses right after John 3:16. Folks, stop right there. But what Jesus says in the continuation down to verse 21 is the same thing he says in John 8:31 and 32. And what he says here, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And And this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone practices evil hates the light, and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed. But he who does the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be clearly seen, that they have been done in God. Those verses we talked a little bit about last week have everything to do with action. And that is synonymous with the word believe. If you believe in Jesus, you follow Jesus. You act. Here's your action. What is your action? And he says here, as I said, it's a wonderful text here, that you come to him, and it's your behavior. And that's what he says here in John chapter 8, in verses 31. Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And that's a major point, obviously, Jesus is making here, and why, as you stated a minute ago, they're on different pages. Jesus is presenting a whole different principle and idea to you, and he has since he came on the scene. He's the light. He's the word.
And this is something that he's been communicating for a long time, right? This trial didn't start in chapter 8. Yes, Grace?
It's also the intent. What is the underlying reasons for their belief? And, maybe at some point in time they didn't believe God was God and that they were going to send, he was going to send a Messiah. But their interpretation of their purpose on this earth was to be the chosen people on this earth and to have a physical king on this earth. Possibly to be like the elite people of the world. And so, Christians nowadays also have the same intent. They only believe and want to trust in God and Jesus when it suits them, when it follows and aligns with their purpose on earth. And so I think that's something that really needs to be driven home is, not just understanding that it's a spiritual thing, but it's also a heart thing of your intent of believing in God and Jesus in the first place. Because in the following scriptures in 39, Jesus points it out. If Abraham was really your father, you would do the works and have the faith that he had and abide by what God wanted him to do. Nowadays, we claim to believe in God whenever we want, but then we justify our evil deeds when it suits us.
So Grace is bringing up something that brings us to a great transition, which is how is the crowd going to respond? And what they've done so far is they've created this identity based off of being descendants of Abraham, which is empty, and it doesn't actually set them free, which is what Keith brought up in our last one. So let's go into 39 through 41. We're actually going to stop halfway through 41. I'll go ahead and read it. Abraham is our father, they answered. If you were Abraham's children, Jesus said, then you would do the things Abraham did. So let's put our finger on that. Let's come back to that. As it is, you are determined to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. Abraham did not do such things. You are doing the things your own father does. Let's stop there and then we'll finish 41 here in a moment. So, according to Jesus, what reveals a person's true spiritual father? It's been touched on a couple times today already. I'm sorry? Their works. 39 I have, you would do what Abraham did. What did we talk about earlier at the beginning of the class, what we know about Abraham? Faith and trust in God, right? And, was willing to go sacrifice his own son. But why was he willing to sacrifice his own son? Artemi?
You know, the spirit for he recommended from God to the spirit.
The commandment from God, but it was also trusting that God would raise him again. That is tremendous belief. And that's what they are missing here. Who brought up actions? I think it was Keith brought up actions. What Jesus is saying is the actions reveals their spiritual identity, not necessarily being a descendant of Abraham. So now Jesus exposes them for wanting to kill him. What does that say about how they are unlike Abraham if they're trying to kill him?
They don't believe that he's the Son of God.
They do not believe he's the Son of God. In 41a, he says, "You are doing the things your father does." Who are we talking about? Who's the father in this case? My version has it under, it's lowercase. Satan. But he doesn't say it, right? I visualize an attorney, and he's got the witness on the stand, and he's leading to his big punch, but he's not actually going to call him out. He's going to do it later. He actually doesn't say Satan, right? Do you think the crowd knows who he's talking about? This is a tough one. Somebody said no? He does not realize that you believe that they don't, that he's not. Let me figure out a way to slow down and say that coherently. Keith, why don't you go ahead and share us with coherently how we're supposed to say that?
I don't know how coherent, but no, people don't understand. People don't understand what Jesus is speaking about. He's already outed the Pharisees and Sadducees and a number of times, and no, the people don't understand. They're looking at the Jewish leaders, and then here's Jesus. Well, as I said last week, he's 2 years into his ministry, but he's newly come to the scene. So who is he? And they don't identify. They see the Pharisees and Sadducees and the religious leaders. So when Jesus uses this term, I believe that they're thinking that he's speaking about God, the Father.
So what is their response? In verse 41, "We are not illegitimate children," they protested. "The only father we have is God himself." What's the problem with that response, based on all the things that Jesus just said? What are they missing? It's right in front of them and they're missing it. How do we have a relationship with God? Through Jesus, the man that they're trying to kill, the man that they have him up on the witness stand. But the response we're hearing is, let's go into 42. I'm sorry, before I move into 42, anything else in 39 through 41 that anybody wants to comment on or ask a question about before I move on to 42? Artemi.
It's very interesting. Jesus from the beginning to say they believe in him, and later to say they try to kill him. What's happening? Why? He said they believe, and he said they try to kill him.
So that's a great question, and I brought this up last week. John decides in his gospel to keep the crowd very fluid. So why is he saying some were believing, but then others are trying to kill him? You have a second thought here?
No,
It's a question. I believe, and please, this is just my personal belief, I believe this was John's intentions, is to keep it very fluid.
I have an answer if you like.
I'm sorry?
I have an answer if you like.
Go ahead.
Answer is to the law. Everyone who teach against the law must be stoned. And this is the same time they believe in him, but they listen something different, and they say, and they think about they have obligation for stoning, and this is why he said they believe and they try to do.
So we're going to talk about stoning him in a moment. We're going to get to that climax here in a moment. Let's go ahead and do we have any volunteers for somebody to just read 42 through 47? I've got Josh. I got 3 hands. Thank you. I'll save them for later. Josh, 42 to 47, please.
Jesus told them, if God were your father, you would love me, because I have come from God. I'm not here on my own, but he sent me. Why can't you understand what I'm saying? It's because you can't even hear me. For you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He was always hated the truth, because the truth is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with the character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So when I tell the truth, you just naturally don't believe me. Which of you truthfully accuse me of sin? And since I'm telling you the truth, why don't you believe me? Anyone who belongs to God listens gladly to the words of God. But if you don't listen because you don't belong to God.
Thank you, Josh. So who's on the stand now? The roles have been reversed. Based on their responses, based on what Jesus is saying, they're on the witness stand. They're being interrogated. And the roles have flipped. What evidence does Jesus give that God is not their father? There's 3 parts to this. I'll give you a hint. 42, 43, and 47. What's the first one? 42. What evidence does Jesus give that God is not their father?
They don't love Jesus.
They do not love him. Great. 43. What's the second reason, evidence that Jesus gives that they don't love their father?
They're not comprehending what he's saying.
They're not comprehending what he's saying, or in other words would be understanding, right?
Well, they're being defiant to what he's saying, really.
They're being that's kind of where the direction I'm going. They're being defiant because they're resisting. Who is this guy? What's the third one? 47. Are they listening? Are they not listening to God's word? Exactly. Those are the 3 things. They do not love him, they do not understand him, and they do not hear God's words. These are the 3 evidences that Jesus gave them that God is not their father. Josh?
I think what the biggest thing it comes down to is they have a huge pride problem. It's a huge pride problem. And I think that's what I think that what you said is the symptom of their pride problem.
Absolutely. And going back to the fluid crowd, we have Pharisees, religious leaders, we have listeners, we have those that are just traveled, like what Warren talked about last week. But we have specific people in that population that is extremely proud of following the old law and the Pharisees, right? And so that's what I was hoping to pull out, is really understanding who this crowd is made of, despite John's approach, the other John McConaughey.
It's always interesting to me how they were so hooked on the old law, and they followed it so poorly. That's the thing that's always killed me, is they're thinking that they're these righteous men, and they're not. I've never understood that, how you can get so full of yourself and what you're doing that you can't see at all. They couldn't see Jesus at all. Because it would be, well, he can't be, because we're doing it right, and he's doing it different. So therefore, we're wrong, and he's right. Well, that can't be right.
Yeah.
We're the right ones. So he has to be doing it wrong.
I'm sure none of us in that room struggle with that we're we're right and the other person's wrong.
Well, it's not, it's also their identity. They are a scribe. They are a Sadducee. You know what I mean? It's, you're a banker. You're a banker, right? So,
Everything's being recorded, yes.
so, but that's how you, when someone says, what do you do? Well, I'm a banker. I'm a Sadducee. Okay, well, you can't be a banker anymore and follow Christ. Well, to give up what you are is a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It's totally, completely opposite of what they have built their identity on, which is just because we're a descendant of Abraham, he is our father. Wyatt?
Just to continue John's thought on that, had they truly been in love with God and listening to God and understanding God, then what they were as Sadducee or whatever their title was would have blended perfectly with what Jesus was presenting. Because it would have been the fulfillment, continuation of that as God moved man through time closer to the day of judgment.
Grace, you have something to add?
They didn't think they needed spiritual help. That's why. And nowadays, there are quite a few, even in this room, at times, and even, everyone in the world. They think that they got it made. They don't need any spiritual counseling or help.
So it's so interesting that Jesus addresses the believers, and what does he do? Does he go home? My work here is done because people started to believe? No, he looks at them and he goes deeper. If you truly believe, and I'm going to botch this because I'm going to have to go backwards, you will continue in my word, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's where we need to continue going deeper. Wyatt, have something to add to that? All right, anything else on 42 through 47 before we move on? Wyatt, you volunteered. Can I have you read 48 through 56? So what, by the way, before we get into this, notice what happens to the defense. Again, I know that I've come back to this a couple times, but we're in a trial room. What happens to the defense at this point, as Wyatt reads 48 through 56? Thank you.
The Jews answered him, "Are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?" Jesus answered, "I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Yet I do not seek my own glory, for there is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. Truly, truly I say to you, anyone who keeps my word, he will never see death." The Jews said to him, "Now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died, as did the prophets, yet you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died? And the prophets died? Who do you make yourself out to be?" Jesus answered, "If I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say he is our God. But you have not known him. I know him. If I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad."
Thank you, Wyatt. Why do the people stop debating and start accusing? Josh?
Fear and self-preservation, and protect their own pride.
Protect their own pride. John was talking about their identity as being jeopardized. So what happens when we get pushed up against a wall? What is our normal reaction to the person that's pushing us?
Push back.
Push back. attack them, diminish their character. So what do they say in 48? Aren't we right in saying that you are a Samaritan? Wow, what an insult. Why is that such an insult?
They weren't pure Jews. They were mixed race.
They were worshiping in different places. This was a hostile relationship. They didn't have the same beliefs. This is an insult. They're calling Jesus a Samaritan. And what's the second thing they say or ask? Are you demon possessed? Because you certainly cannot be part. And why is that so significant? I was answering my own question.
It's tearing him down from being the Son of God.
You cannot. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you if you were finished. You cannot be from God if you are demon possessed. There's now someone talked about throwing. Our team is talking about throwing stones. We'll get to that here in a few minutes, but they're already throwing them, figuratively. What's his response in 49? I am not possessed by a demon, Jesus said, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. What does he say in 56? Verse 56.
But their ancestor Abraham was happy that he would see Jesus' day come.
Your father, Abraham, who you are referencing and you're going back to through your identity and your inheritance, he rejoiced in the idea of me being here today. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and he was glad. Why did Abraham make it to the Hall of Faith? You got to just answer my question. Tremendous amount of faith. This crowd had no faith. This crowd was about their title, as John talked about. This crowd was comfortable in how they were following the old law. They were at the Feast of Tabernacles, and they were there bright early, celebrating. But yet, the Son of Man, who Abraham had been talking about, was right in front of them, and they were already throwing stones at him figuratively. I would really like to finish this, but I don't want to rush to the point where I miss anybody who would like to add something here. Any other comments through 58? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I did forget one more point. No, I'm jumping ahead. All right, let's go into 57 through 59. Go ahead. 57 through 59. Thank you.
You're not yet 50 years old, and the Jews said to him, you have seen Abraham? I tell you the truth. Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. And they picked up the stones to stone him, but Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds.
So 57. Are they talking spiritually or physically again? Physically. You're not even 50 years old. And you've seen Abraham? Does that make any sense? And what is his response? 58. I tell you the truth. Before Abraham was born, I am. Wow. He just dropped some heavy evidence on them. Where do we go back to the Old Testament and know what he's actually talking about?
Moses and the burning bush.
Moses and the burning bush. God says, I am, because he was fearful. By the way, at the beginning of that story, do you recall what he was doing? Moses?
Wasn't he watching sheep?
He was watching sheep. What a humble, God-fearing activity to be doing. Much different than being a Sadducee or a Pharisee. And God says, I am. That was the beginning of Israel's identity for the deliverance out of slavery. Now, let me ask you another question. I asked this before. Does the crowd know what he's referring to?
They should. They really revered Moses, and they should have remembered. Like God said, I am.
Donna's using a should here. Does anybody else want to add something to that? Does the crowd know specifically what he's referring to? Warren.
The Jews and the Jewish leaders, the educated, they should know about that. But there are far more people in this crowd than just the educated. So I know the Jews were probably leading, the Pharisees were probably leading the discussion, but I bet there was lots of questioning going on, sidebars and side discussions going on. So the Pharisees had to defend their own standing, not only to Jesus, but the crowd also. So they should have known.
Okay, I heard another should. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that? By the way, neither one of you are wrong. I'm just curious about the word should. Did they know what he was referring to? Wyatt?
They absolutely do. Maybe not every person in the audience of his hearing, but to Warren's point, there were those who knew the scriptures, who knew what the implication of I am truly meant. And I would believe on some level, all of the audience knew what that meant.
So, if they knew what that meant, what is their response?
They're saying it's blasphemy.
Blasphemy. What do? They pick up stones physically. They're going to assassinate him right now. The crowd understands the significance of this claim. At this, the case is over. The trial is over. The verdict is we're going to assassinate him with stones. But what happens after that? Verse 59. Why?
So Jesus hid himself and left.
He slipped away.
The manner of what that was, I'm curious. I'm very curious. But the fact of the matter is, he gave himself an exit to walk out of it.
It wasn't his time. Bob?
Well, like Wyatt was saying earlier, it's the way Jesus handles situations. You know, when he's being called a Samaritan, he handled it calmly like that. In this situation, just like when he was getting taken off into the cross, he could have called 10,000 angels. He could have done something physically to stop it. But quietly just slips out the back because he's going to continue who he is and what he is to.
So, anybody else have, this is verse 59, we could spend like a whole week on that. Anybody else have anything to add on this one? I feel like Keith wants to answer, and I'm happy for that. He does not. John?
In my mind, I've always tried to picture, okay, we're going to kill you, Billy, and we're going to pick up books and rocks and we're going to throw them at you. And suddenly you're not there. In my mind, I'd have to rethink the whole process. What did he say? I guess you come back to, okay, he is demon possessed,
He could make himself disappear.
right? Because I still can't be wrong.
Yeah. There's something different.
So there's something different about
Yeah.
you, and it must be the demon possession that's allowing you to say such horrible things.
Bob brings up a great point. Notice the progression of this story and how Jesus responds and how he's listening to the words that they're saying, and he's addressing them very specifically, calmly and lovingly. He knows his crowd. He knows his people. He knows why they're there. He also knows this is not his time. His time is coming. That was mentioned in the chapter before. What are some things that we can, as Christians, in the very short time that we have, take away, because Jesus addressed the crowd specifically of those who are believers. What can we specifically take from this story? Artini?
We can know what's the link between the spirit and the truth. And I have an example about it. I don't have a 50 years old, but I have the message from the other. If I come to the karaoke club, they have a big screen. And I will ask them, why is so big screen? They say, well, we can sing the word, and we can soul. And I will ask them, why isn't the soul? They say, it doesn't measure its direction, it doesn't matter. For the worship, it matters. And your father knows about that. And they build this place for the worship, especially directed and in the proper direction. I don't know them. I don't have 50 years old. They probably died before I'm born. But this is the truth right here.
Thank you. Ryan Swain will pick up chapter 9 in the fall, Lord willing. Thank you, everybody, for your participation this morning.
How are you? I think so.
The ladies' ones over there.
Yeah, there is.
My question is, we grab one of these each time to the class and then return it?
You get to keep that, and that'll be for the whole class.
Okay, so we can look at the study and all that.
Make your notes.
So are we keeping the class all together Sundays, or we're gonna still separate
I
ladies?
think it's, yeah.
Okay,
So separate.
okay, so that's gonna be my thing.
Yeah. Get these
Got your dollars here? What's going on? By yourself?
Yes.
You're here. That's
Yes.
all right. Thank you. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
Cody, yeah, opening prayer. Opening. Yeah.